David Goldfarb, what is your favourite game?
My favorite game is Diablo 2. Let's see. So I guess, man, it's a long time ago. I started playing games. Computer games when I was a kid. They barely existed because I'm old and stuff. So actually, before when I was growing up, I think the first thing I ever saw, my dad brought home. The first thing I ever saw, first game I saw, was like in his office. It was like a printed out game. I think it was on one of those like mainframes, and it was Star Trek. And you basically use ASCII characters, and it would like run a printout on a dot matrix printer, and it would you would plot basically where the shot, like the photon torpedo or whatever, would go. That's how old I am. That should tell you something. And and I remember like being super into it, and he was explaining it to me, I think I was probably like maybe 6 or 7, and then my friends started to get computers. I think like my friend got a TRS-80, and it's in my school. We had PET computers, which are these old fucking horrible, weird retro looking like green, just monochrome screen things, and I played like Adventure, which was like just a text adventure back then, and I remember playing Zork, and I remember like all that stuff, and then Atari kind of came along, and so this all kind of evolved alongside. I remember going to like game stores when I was probably 8 or 9 because my friends were like somebody showed up with like a D&D manual, and I was super like fascinated by the idea that you could make up a world and play in it, and that there were rules and things, and so like that was like another parallel track. And then the last track, I think the first greatest love of my life as far as games go was baseball, and that's something I also shared with my dad. So I think there's definitely like a theme of like this was something that my father loved, and I wound up loving too. And even though the game stuff he didn't like as much, like computer games and things, I think there was an appreciation for like things that were different, and the idea that there was like this new frontier, I think, was interesting to me and to him. So that was something that just started very early for me.
You mentioned you were playing quite a bit of text adventure games at that time. Like, what specifically? Like, can you remember?
Oh, Jesus. I remember like going over to my friend's house because back then, like we weren't like rich or anything. Like I would always, my friends though, I had friends that like they always seemed to have computers, so I was always like, oh, let me go over to my friend's house. So they had like, I played Zork. I definitely remember that. I played Planetfall. I played Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and there was all this stuff that once the Apple II came out, there were a lot of other games that sort of started to turn up, also that were super cool, and those are like, these are all really old, but like the Castle Wolfensteins, and there's like all these gems that people have probably forgotten about, like Rescue Raiders and stuff, and Choplifter, and just 2D, really simple stuff, but with kind of like cool cool gameplay. And so like that's Anyway, I kind of got off the subject, but I still at that point there was nothing up until Wizardry came along, and that was like a big thing because that was the first RPG I really ever had a chance to play. And I was super into Wizardry. Like that was a huge deal for me.
So yeah, just talk on how you first got into the industry side of things, though.
Man. Well, are you? This is also like a kind of a weird, the weird circuitous story, but I guess I started. The first thing that I did in the industry, I answered it. My mother told me like, "Hey, you should." There's this ad in the newspaper. I'd just gotten back from college. I'd graduated, and it was like, I don't know what I want to do. And but I knew that like I like games and it would be great if I could find a way to work in them. So at one point, but I was still like, I have no idea how that's going to play out. So I think my mother handed me a newspaper, and there was an ad in the paper back then, and she was like, they're looking for quality assurance people at Acclaim, which is this they made Mortal Kombat and stuff in Glen Cove, Long Island, which was, I don't know, like an hour drive. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So so then I called them up, and I was like, hey, are you guys hiring? Blah blah blah. And they're like, yeah, come by, we'll set up an interview. And stop me if I'm getting into too much detail.
No, go for it.
So then like. At the time, I think I was about to go on like vacation with my girlfriend, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna go on vacation. I'll come back. The job will probably be there. And by some miracle, it still was. Like I went to Mexico, I came back 3 weeks later, and they were like, yeah, it's cool, whatever, just come on in. So I really wanted the job, so I dressed that suit, which, if you know anything, this is like the most preposterous. I never wore a suit in my life. I never wore it to like a marriage, to like a wedding that I'd been to before. That was the only time I'd ever worn one. Job, so I was like, I'll put the suit on. So I go in there, and I remember Dale, who was the guy who interviewed me at Acclaim. He's like, man, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I just, I thought it would be a good idea. He's like, yeah, you're fine. And so after talking to him, they hired me as QA, and then I worked there on I like a QA Turok Dinosaur Hunter and Bust a Move 2, and on the, I think it was the N64, and Turok on the PC, and a couple other games I can't remember. There's like a Magic game that Acclaim did called Battle something. It's really buggy. But yeah, that was the kind of beginning for me, was working at QA at Acclaim for like a year or so. Then I left there at some point. I went on to I basically moved to New York, and then I did interaction design and like web game and kiosk design for a number of years. And then I got tired of that, and I was like, I just want to work in bigger games. And we decided to move after like we were living in New York at the time, and then the 9/11, we were like right there when all that happened. And it was like, no, that'd be a good time to go. So we went to Italy, where my ex-wife's family was, and I was there for a while. And I started to work on this mod for Dungeon Siege called Elemental, and then that kind of eventually turned into this thing where I was working. I got this job as a designer for Milestone, who's this Italian game company, and I worked on these 2 racing games, neither of which was very good, but I'm still kind of proud of them because they did a bunch of stuff before anybody else. Like there was an RPG element in the car game, and in the car game and this other crap. So whatever, they were not very good games, but I worked there for a while. Then I left. We left Italy and then moved over to Guerrilla, where I worked on Killzone 2, and that was pretty cool. Those are good guys. I did that for a few years, and then moved on to DICE after that to work ostensibly on Bad Company 2, but which hadn't started actually when I got there. I discovered, so I had to help them close out BC1, and then I worked on Mirror's Edge and then I was lead on BC2, and then on BF3, and then left during BF4 after like 6 years, and then went over to work at Overkill and was director on Payday 2, and that worked out pretty well. And now I am doing. Now I have my own studio with Ben at The Outsiders, doing our own thing.
Let's get into it then. Your favorite game, Diablo 2. So, did you get into the original Diablo beforehand?
Oh yeah.
Like, what did you think?
I loved the first Diablo. I remember reading about it and being like, oh, I really want this game to come out. I've been waiting for a game like this to come out forever. Because I think I had played, I don't remember when it came out relative to like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. I want to say it was before that. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was. But there were a bunch of games like Baldur's Gate that had come out before, like Pool of Radiance and stuff, that were really cool, and I liked those. But there was something about Diablo and its procedurality that I was super, super into. And I was like, oh, this game is awesome. So I played Diablo 1, and I loved the shit out of Diablo 1. I played it like into the ground. And then I pretty much played all Blizzard games. And then I was just basically waiting for Diablo 2 to come out. Yeah.
And doing notes for Diablo for this episode for Diablo 2, it's worth noting that I should admit up front that my only experience with Diablo is Diablo 3 itself, so I can't really comment too much on Diablo 2. But like in gathering notes, I discovered that Blizzard North never really had an inkling of a design document. Like, they kind of winged it. Like, that's insane. Like, you can't really just jump into development without a design document.
Oh yeah, you can. I mean, we're not using design documents as such. I mean, the thing is that there are a lot of different ways to make games, and the problem with documents is that no one reads them, and the other problem with documents is that someone has to update them, and the third problem is that usually when you're making things, if you're writing documents, you're not talking to people, and those are the things. Like, the most important thing when you're making a game is, and this is really hugely variable when it comes to like team size and stuff, because at a certain point you're going to be able to, you may have to communicate with people, and then documents are useful. But when you're a really small team, and I think Blizzard North was quite small, outside of like having really small kind of mini documents that are like, you know, here's a mechanic, or here's a pitch or a concept, or here's the high level idea for the game. Like, they're really generally like you're talking about spreadsheets, you know, like those are the things that you might need. But other than that, no, you can definitely make games like that, and most of the games, in fact, nearly all of them that I've worked on, tried to minimize documents. So, what was I going to say? Something about Diablo 2, probably. Did you? So yeah. So do you want me to? How shall I talk about it? Do you want me to talk about the difference? How it's different from
Diablo 1? Yeah, sure.
From Diablo 1 or Diablo 3 or.
Let's go with Diablo 1. I'll go and do Diablo 3 later on.
Okay, so the deal is with Diablo 1, you had a number of classes, and you would find like magic books and stuff like that in the world, and you would be able to cast spells based on the magic books. And like, I think if I remember right, you could like level. The more magic books you found, they would basically be like they themselves would give you like a skill level in that spell. So if you found like, you know, the fireball level 6, then you'd be casting level 6 fireball. and I think that you can find other ones, and then you can continue to level up that particular spell that you found. So there was some stuff that was carried over to Diablo 2, like and that was like the random generation of levels and the random what the hell is it called, the 2.5D kind of aspect, the isometric RPG stuff, and just the whole idea that there's this kind of random procedural world that is different every time that you play. So that stuff went over from D1 to Diablo 2. The stuff that changed in Diablo 2, though, that was, as far as I know, that is the first time a skill tree turned up in the history of games, I think. At least it's the first one I saw. So Diablo 2 wound up, like I think that you had 3 classes, if I remember right, in Diablo 1. It was like mage, fighter, and what the hell was the other one? Something. I don't even remember. There were 3, though, if I remember right. Yeah, I can't recall. But, so, Diablo 2 had, like, very specific classes, and they each had, like, really specific skill trees. And the skill trees were this sort of collection. I mean, you know what a skill tree is, right?
Yeah.
But I'd never seen one before. So it was, when Diablo 2 did it, it was like, there was this tree, and it had like 30 different skills, and you would increase your level, and you'd be like, oh, what is that? That's like, I'd get ravens. That's cool. Oh, I can level that up so I get more ravens. That's cool. I've never seen that before. So and when you would commit to the different choices that you made, and for me that was a big deal, because I don't know, I never. It made every time you played the game, you had to make these choices, and then you couldn't take them back. So or at least I would be like, I would really agonize over all those decisions, and that was a big design thing for me. Like I took that with me, that the agony of choice is a good design principle. I think because if the choices are interesting and you're like flip-flopping on what you should do, to me that's good. That means that you've done something right. If the person always makes the same choice, or goes like, oh, I don't want that, I want, this is obviously a shitty thing, and this is obviously a good thing, then that's not a good setup for a skill tree.
Like I was going to say, like, what game do you think since Diablo 2 has done that really well, that kind of agony of choice thing that you've been talking about?
I mean, there are a lot of games, I guess, that do it. I mean, you see it in like the leveling trees in everything from like Call of Duty when you're playing multiplayer to like Sid Meier games in Civilization, where you got your tech tree and you're going up and you're like, oh, do I want to get the whatever it is, the base building skill faster? Do I want to up my humans? XCOM is a big one. I mean most games. I know, like when I was playing World of Warcraft, for instance, the same thing. Like if you play League of Legends, or if you play any of those games, you're always sitting there going like, oh, do I want to run the fucking lane, or do I want to do this other thing, or do I want to choose this high end skill for my mage, or in Hearthstone when you're making your deck, it's the same. Like all games, I think, if the choices are interesting and they aren't obviously better than one another, then you potentially have something. It's not that you can't have things that are obviously better, but that you should you want to strive to have. To put things in front of the player that they have to think about and like go, well, this is, maybe I'll take one of these. So that's how I think their skill trees were set up like that, at any rate. Like there were some things that were better, but they really, like they patched the game a lot, and they really worked on balance. So that was something I admired. and there was a bunch of other stuff though that they did. Yeah, I mean, everything from like they really improved their level design. They had like these 5 acts, so you covered like you went to these 5 radically different environments, and that felt super cool. And you get to see your character with like all of their new stuff, which had not been done as far as I remember ever. So that was super cool because you would find stuff and you'd go, oh, now I've got the sword that I found, and it looks like the sword, and like I see it and stuff like in the UI. You would see your character, so that was super cool too. I know it sounds weird because it's like a lot of that shit is just taken for granted now. But back then, it just none of that existed.
You mentioned the classes like from Diablo 1. Like for Diablo 2, there was about 5 of them. Like
Yeah, there were 5.
Plus an extra 2 in Lord of Destruction. Like there's Amazon, Necromancer, Barbarian, Sorceress, and Paladin.
Yep.
And then Droid and Assassin in Lord of Destruction. Like what class did you play as most in the game? Anyways?
I think I ran when I first started. I played Barbarian up to level 99, and then I think I made a sorcerer, and then I got them up to 99, and then I think I get all the classes up to 99. But I think my main was the Barbarian up until Lord of Destruction came out, and then Lord of Destruction, I think I was playing like a werewolf druid pretty much exclusively because it was super cool and had all this cool stuff. I really liked that class. Yeah, it was cool.
like what classes kind of stood out for you in terms of that made Diablo 2 so well loved, basically, for you?
They were really good at making the classes feel distinct. Like the Barbarian was like this. He was like really mobile, could do a ton of damage, could absorb a lot of damage. I'm trying to even remember like all the crazy abilities that he had. He had like a bunch of cool stuff that felt like it was consistent with the character, with the archetype, and it was true of all of the characters. And that I can't really think of a game that did it like that before, where you were like, oh, I'm this class. I mean, it was really the beginning of class-based. As far as I remember, it was like the beginning of a class-based system. I mean, maybe I don't know if Codename Eagle was before or after this, and maybe there were other games, but for me, that was the one that it was like, this is an archetype that you're going to play, and as an archetype, there's going to be all this shit that is specific to that archetype, and it's going to be consistent, and it's going to feel cool and unique. And that was a totally new thing. No one had done that, as far as I remember. No one had certainly done that in an RPG before, or action RPG. So it was really like different.
You may have touched upon this before, but you mentioned in part analyst like Diablo 2's procedural generation for dungeons, and just talk of that and how that impacted the game.
Well, like usually when you would, I mean the whole thing with that setup was normally I have a bunch of opinions about procedural games, but I think one of the big challenges when you make one is you need to bound the amount of procedurality you have. Otherwise, people just perceive it as randomness, and then the game then it doesn't feel good to a player. But Diablo, both of them, especially 2, was super super good at having like essentially random generation of the dungeon and random generation of monsters and items and unique monsters and unique gems and all these runes and having the chances of those things be hugely variable and modifiers on all the creatures and all this fucking crazy shit. But it never felt like it was out of control, like there was too much. Like if you played, I don't know if you played what's it called? Is it Pools of Exile? Path of Exile?
I've not. I know of Path of Exile. I've
or
not, but I've
or
not.
like
I know I've played Torchlight though. I've played Torchlight.
okay, so you play Torchlight or like Grim Dawn.
Hmm.
Either of those, like and I like Torchlight and Travis is amazing, but I think the scope of like mods and drops and stuff in both in Torchlight and in Grim Dawn, it's too wide. It's too hard to parse all the different modifiers and things. It's like there's just too much stuff. And what happens is when there's too much stuff, you start to... It's all the same. It becomes the same. You don't feel the excitement of, oh man, that's a new whatever. And Diablo 2 was amazing because it managed to somehow have like their randomness be just the right amount of randomness alongside the crafted stuff, like the unique items, so that you could potentially like get something that was super awesome and rare and was totally procedural, or you could get something that was like a unique item but still had some random stats. And no one had ever done that before that well, and I'm still not sure anyone has since then. Diablo 3 definitely didn't, in my opinion. So yeah, the bonus, the good thing about procedural games is basically, things are different every time, and you can surprise people. You can surprise a player with something they've never seen before. So that's a huge, powerful thing. And it was definitely when I played it. The bad part is that if you're surprising people every time, then there's no more surprise. It's all the same. You're just surprising people, and they're like, I don't know why this is different from anything else, because everything is new. So yeah, so it's a tough problem, but I think they did really well with it.
Like, surprise, we have a surprise for you, and that kind of meta surprise in itself just is kind of ruined every time it happens.
Yeah, if you do anything too much, it's going to wear, it's going to wear out its welcome.
If I remember correctly, like, with online, and we'll touch upon online properly in a second, but like, online maps were randomly generated as well. Like, whereas if you were offline, it was just kind of static. And if you can kind of get what I said, if you can kind of get what I mean from that.
I believe that they were both randomly generated. The thing that would happen would be it would what did it do for single player? It did something a little bit different for single player. Your single player character couldn't be used, if I remember right, in multiplayer. So what I would do, and most people would do, would just be play on Battle.net. And Battle.net was like the other thing that was revolutionary back then, because what it meant was you could show whatever you found to your friends. So like if you had crazy stuff that you'd found, you could go online and like play with your friends, and they'd be like, "How the fuck did you find that?" And that was super cool, because that had never really been done. And you knew that, in theory anyway, that Battle.net couldn't be hacked, so it was all legit. Whereas if you're playing single player, and that stuff, anybody could hack that stuff. So yeah, that was another thing that was really interesting back then.
What procedural generated games, or that have had kind of procedural generation at the forefront of their games, do you think that's worked really well? Like, obviously No Man's Sky is coming up, and that's going to be a big thing, but like the other big thing, or another game that kind of springs to mind for me that I actually really like in terms of how it adapts to procedural generation in games is Spelunky.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. Spelunky is quite good. I mean, there's a lot of indie games that are doing it. I mean, obviously Minecraft is a big, no longer an indie, but like, that's what Marcus did, and it obviously speaks to people in some way, finding new things, and every time you play the game, that there's a new vein of rock somewhere. There are other games that I think that do well. What was that one that just came out? Stardew Valley, and Terraria, and I mean the new XCOM, I think, is procedural now in large part, like, I mean, the games that a lot of the games that people are playing that don't even register as such, like Fallout is mainly authored, but certainly some of their systems are procedural. Same with Skyrim. Um, and what the hell was I just playing the other day? Not Dark Souls though. Definitely not Dark Souls. That game is authored all the way through. But yeah, there are plenty of games that are good examples of like procedural systems now, and there's a lot of success associated with them. But yeah, it's not. I don't think it's not a slam dunk to make that kind of game and assume it's going to succeed, because you got to do a bunch of stuff.
You gotta need that human touch on it.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna make that stuff, it has to be in the service of like a design that it makes sense with, and then there are things that you need to do to treat the randomness so that people can understand it in a way.
Touched upon just then very briefly, but yeah, online multiplayer via Battle.net. Like you said, it was a big thing for its time, and it was like in the year 2000. Like you can still play it alone, you can still play via LAN, but it was like the most popular option for the game. Like, just go into detail on how you found that.
I would say I played mostly online. I mean, it was cool. Like, you would go on and like you'd meet up with people that wanted to trade, or you would just like try to level your guy, or go on like treasure runs. I mean, up until World of Warcraft, I would say I probably spent more time doing that than almost anything else. And I played exclusively probably online because you could get better stuff. That was another really interesting thing that they did. They made it so like playing online, and the more people that you you played with, they would scale like the rewards and the treasure tables and stuff like that. I don't know if this is too stupidly technical, but they would do a bunch of stuff to ensure that like if you were playing with a lot of people, that you were going to get more XP, and that you would probably get better rolls when it came to like finding stuff. I remembered that like when we going into doing other designs for other things like in the future. Like, there were just so many good design takeaways from Diablo 2. That's why it's my favorite game, not just because it was legitimately awesome. It's my favorite game because I can't think of another game that had more design lessons kind of built into it that came all at once. Maybe Doom, but not for me though. I think Doom was not in the same way.
When you say those kind of design influences, like Doom, like the other big one that kind of sticks out when I talk to most people about their kind of design influences is Super Mario as well. So it's really interesting to hear you talk of Diablo as kind of design influence, because like whenever I talk to anyone about design, it's like either Super Mario is the big influence, or if it's not Super Mario, then it's Doom. So
yeah, I mean, I think for me, I never had a Nintendo, so I didn't. And I think when I played Mario, I was like, yeah, this is cool, but I'm not really that interested in it. Like, I spent way more time looking at other kinds of games or outside of computer games. Like, I was super interested in baseball and why things worked the way that they did, and why, I mean, for me, it was like a perfect game as a system. And I always wanted to know why things were why one player was better than another player, and how I could think about that in like statistical terms. And later it would become really interesting when they got to like doing all the sabermetric stuff. But games, for me, like the design lessons came from like Diablo and Sid Meier, and some of the stuff that Looking Glass did, and some of the stuff that I played like many years ago, like arcade games that I love, like Tempest and Asteroids and shit like that. So I guess I have a pretty broad, weird spectrum of stuff that had design lessons. I'm sure the other people would probably say the same thing.
The recent patch, like this is the first one in 5 years. Like, have you had a chance to play it with that new patch yet?
I haven't, because I think I didn't see any substantial changes. I should actually look at it right now. Did it say what was in the patch? I think they were just preparing for new computers.
I think that was it. Maybe.
Yeah. but I think they're going to do like a HD version.
Well, I'm just double checking this myself. I only just know that there was a patch.
Yeah,
let me double check.
Yeah, here it is. Blizzard just released a patch. It's a new install for OS X. So you have no excuse now.
I do not. And if they're doing that to Diablo 2, then they're going to do that with other games, obviously down the line, like Warcraft 3.
Warcraft, yep.
And
Definitely
Starcraft.
Warcraft 3. Yep. I mean, those are all like amazing games. So, yeah, I personally think that they are going to re-release this game with like an HD remaster. I would not be surprised because there's so many people who would buy it.
Would you buy it?
Yeah, I would buy it in a heartbeat if it came out. Because like I said, I like Diablo 3. I think there are many things about Diablo 3 that are tremendous. Like they have that new I can't remember what it's called. Basically, you can just explore the map. You don't need to go through the storyline. You can roam around, do whatever, like all that stuff. But the problem with Diablo 3 for me is that a lot of the things that they did to make the game better or more streamlined have erased the things that were kind of a pain, or they were like the grit that made things great in Diablo 2. So when you take away the grit, you take away the character of the game, and that's what happened, I think, with Diablo 3. It's not that it's not good, it's just that it's not what it used to be. It's a different game.
It's basically not Diablo 2.
No.
So, I want to touch upon Lords of Destruction then, as a specific point. And we obviously mentioned there was the 2 new classes and FF Act, and how did you find Lord of Destruction?
I think I played almost more of that than I played of well, I don't know, the same amount. That was, I think, they really released it as a quote expansion, but it was basically a new game. There was so much content, so I loved it. I mean, I don't even know how many hours I sunk into that freaking game. Like between D2 and the expansion, it was crazy. And they added all this cool stuff, which I think was they added the what's it called, the conversion thing, which the Herodric Cube, and they added. Just a whole. I think they added the 2 new classes. They added gems and I'm trying to remember what totems and all this all this great shit that was the product of them looking at the game that they had and then going how can we take what we have and make it better, and that felt like exactly what they shipped. And that was that was great. It's a great expansion, also worth playing.
What do you think that makes Blizzard games tick so well? It's worth mentioning that as of recording this, the beta for Overwatch just came out, and it's so fucking good. I can't even begin to tell you.
I have not played it yet, which is really funny because my friend was like, "Dude, why are you not playing this game?" I'm like, I just don't have time, but I really should because should play all Blizzard games, of course. Why are they so good? This is the secret question. Nobody knows. No, I think the reason that they're good, do you know anything about the way, their design ethos?
I wouldn't say yes, but I've heard them kind of talk of it in the past, but I just can't remember much of it.
From what I know, everybody has valid design input. So they listen to everybody. They always prioritize what's the best thing for the game. So they don't discriminate about where something's coming from or how crazy the idea is. The best idea always wins. They have infinite money, so they take their time. They will kill projects if they suck. They've done it before. I think. They are incredibly good at just kind of polishing stuff to a place where it feels good. It's a hard thing to articulate, but they're if you look at Hearthstone, for instance, just the act of opening a pack I haven't looked at Overwatch. I suspect there's a similar mechanic, but just like that whole thing, like you open, it feels really good. The sound is great. The visuals are great. The latency on you clicking the thing is very fast. Like there's no latency. Like there's just all this crap that they do that is under the surface that most people don't even pay attention to, that they do, and there seems to be like an absolute attention to craft, which is really unusual, and there are very few studios that have it. I think Naughty Dog has it, Blizzard has it, and a few others.
Valve has it, don't they?
Valve has it, yeah. But Valve is too busy making other stuff right now to have it. I think the Dark Souls guys have it, although not in the same way, maybe. And I think now they're spread too thin. There are definitely studios that have it. And I think in Blizzard's case, a lot of it is a function of them being in a great financial position, so they can afford to take 6 years or 7 years. And how many studios can do that? Not that many. So yeah, but I do think that there's a culture that has arisen at Blizzard that's part of their success, and that is that they are relentless about like making things better in real ways. And if you look at their games, I mean they don't ship bad games.
No, like you said, they're not afraid they can't shit if it feels like it isn't going to work. Like they more or less can't. Titan, which was meant to be their next big MMO, in place of, so and out of that they took out elements of that MMO and kind of mushed them all together and then some to make a game that is now known as Overwatch. And like that's kind of impressive, because at least they can find the eye of going into a burned project, so to speak, and pull out one or two key things that from that project that could go on to be the core of another big thing. That's impressive.
It's pretty cool. Like I had forgotten that's actually how it came to be. I don't know how Heroes is doing. Heroes of the Storm. I mean, I'm sure it's making money, but it's not setting the world on fire compared to like whatever League of Legends or Dota. Too. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think Blizzard is just super fucking good, and they're going to continue to be good because they have a history of knowing what good looks like for their studio. So yeah, they're just good.
and like you mentioned, Hearthstone as well, like, and how you open up a pack just feels so joyful. Like I like playing Overwatch. Like you get these kind of loot packs. Once you've leveled up to a certain level in the beta, and I had several packs of them going on the go, and like when you open them up, it's not instantaneous like with Hearthstone. Like you have to pull down the square button, like, and after like 2 or 3 seconds, like they'll open up. But like even then, it just feels like a kind of bit of a joy. Like admittedly, when you're opening stuff, it's not like something essential like a brand new deck of cards like in Hearthstone, but like it's still really fulfilling. Like it's all emblems and voice bits and all that there, but like it's still a really fulfilling feeling. Anyways,
yeah, that's what they're. Have you played Team Fortress 2? Is it better than TF2's box opening?
Oh god, like I've not really played TF2 at all on PC, but I played quite a bit of it on console on the Xbox 360 when the orange box was a thing.
Okay.
But I will say this, like, playing Overwatch, like, it has me so optimistic. Like, when I went into Overwatch, before playing Overwatch, I was kind of interested at it, and when they announced the console version, alright, like, right, this is it, like, I can perhaps get myself into it now, because, like, my PC is kind of on the brink of dying, and I'm kind of surprised that it's still standing now to do this. But when I started playing Overwatch, I was like, holy shit, this actually could be a worthy successor to Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, I guess.
Like I fucking adore TF2, like, at least when I played it on console, but, like, this could really be the best squad-based FPS since TF2.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, are you playing, what's the one that Gearbox is...
Battleborn.
Yeah.
I've not played that at all. Like I played a bit of that beta, and it didn't really interest me at all. Like I think it's just trying to be too many things at once.
Yeah, that was my opinion too. It just wasn't there, and it was the art direction drove me back insane. So I couldn't look at it. It was giving me like epilepsy. But yeah,
like
go ahead.
Like I was going to say, there was this tweet the other day from Randy Pitchford, and like he was trying to describe how Battleborn was all these things. I'm trying to find it now, but it's just like we both agree, obviously. Like it's just trying to be too many things at once. Like when the Unveiled trailer came out, like I was definitely interested in it, and it helped that it had M83 as the kind of trailer song for it. But when I saw more and more of it, and then when I played of it, it just felt like, really, like is this really how it's going to be? Like here, I found a tweet from Pitchford. Like he says, Battleborn is FPS, hobby grade, co-op campaign, genre blended, multi-mode competitive esports, meta growth, choice plus epic Battleborn heroes. Like that kind of sums it up. Like it is just trying to be too much.
Yeah, that's just fucking nuts. That's too many things.
Like with Overwatch, like it's like you know what it is up front. It's just like heroes versus villains, just shoot the crap out of one another. That's it. Whereas with Battleborn, like we said, it's just trying to be too much.
Yeah, I think Blizzard is among the best at distilling an idea into a thing and then making it, and there's no confusion about what it is. None of their games, in fact, have ever suffered from like, oh, I don't know what this is. You never look at StarCraft and go, well, it's trying to be a MOBA, whatever. It's not. It's StarCraft, and Diablo 2 is never, or Diablo 3. It's what it is, and there is none of that confusion. So I think that's the mark of a really mature company conceptually, and I don't think that Gearbox is in the same place, even though they're a very good company. I just don't think they're as strong.
With StarCraft and other Blizzard games, if it goes in the other bits, like esports and all that, there it does so organically. Like whereas with Battleborn, and I know it seems like we're just kind of piling on with it, but like with Battleborn, it just feels like they're trying to force it, and a lot of games are trying to force stuff that really doesn't fit into it. Like whereas with Blizzard games, like it just kind of evolves into it organically.
Yeah.
Moving back to Diablo 2 itself, then, like, what else did you like about Diablo 2 that we've not touched upon tonight?
What else did I like about Diablo 2? I think I liked. Well, they had these things that were runes, so they were pretty much the rarest thing in the game, and they were really almost insanely hard to find. Like in one case, I think one was like 1 in 650,000, the chance of finding this one particular rune. And what you would do is you could assemble the runes into rune words. There are a whole bunch of different rune words, and they would endow your weapon with. You'd slot them into your weapon, and they would give your weapon like some crazy set of bonuses. So that just like having that as a thing that could happen, like that you could like spend a lot of time just looking for runes. That was like a pastime for me. So I would just be like, trying to figure out what I could do to maximize my like rune finding ability. Man, I had a lot of time on my hands back then, and so that was super cool because nobody had done that before either. It was basically like, if you think about it, it was a very, very low fidelity version of crafting, and it actually started with, the crafting actually started with the Herodric Cube, where you were like converting one thing into another thing. I wonder if that was the first time that happened. Jesus, it might have been. So, like, anyway, you can see, like, Diablo 2 has all these fucking crazy things that they were kind of the first to do. And yeah, no, I hadn't even thought of that. But that was super cool, too.
Wow, the more you talk about Diablo 2, it seems like it's a game of firsts.
It definitely was. Even though it was the second, it was a game of firsts.
What didn't you like about Diablo 2?
I want to go with nothing. I think, what was it? There were probably things I didn't like. You got a lot of people duping, like um, in when people figured out how to how to like hack stuff. You had people that were like there was a unit of currency that people were using to trade that was the Stone of Justice, and it was this ring that would give you like +1 to your level, and I can't remember what the fuck else it would do, but it was basically like it was literally like a unit of currency. Like that was the thing that it was like $1 or whatever. It was like $100 bill, and so people would use that, and they'd be like, "I'll give you 10 stones of justice for whatever," because they could just. I don't remember why it was that. I guess because in PvP it was the most valuable thing you could kind of have, because it would add levels and boost all your stuff in ways that very little else could. And it was a ring, so you could have 2 of them. But anyway, so like that it got pretty annoying. You just have people that were stockpiling that stuff, and then they would just trade them, and then they would have everything, and it would be stupid, and they would ruin the game. So that annoyed me. But for the most part, I mean, Blizzard was pretty good at like controlling the hacking scene up until at least the beginning. It was okay, and then it got kind of crazy. I don't remember what happened after that. But other than that I don't remember not liking very much. Yeah, not so much.
Well, fair enough. What would you change, if anything, from a design perspective from Diablo 2? I'm guessing not much, if anything.
Wow, I'd have to think about that. What did I want to... There were probably things that I wanted to change. But in truth, I think it is one of the few games that I mean, you always want like more environments and stuff, but that's not a change thing. That's just a want thing. It wasn't a flaw. I think it would have been interesting to do what they did with Diablo 3, which is, you don't have to run the story. And even they allowed you to kind of travel. After you beat the game, they allowed you to travel from act to act and play like all the stuff, so you could just jump around. You didn't have to be bound by the story. But I guess they could have... I mean... I don't know what I would have changed. Like thinking back on it, they're low level things. I don't think there was anything big that I would have changed offhand. I'm trying to remember. I know there was something that annoyed me, but I can't remember what it was. What would it have been? Yeah, I don't even know at this point. There was a lot of clicking. I think that was the one complaint that people had. It was like, Jesus, do you just wear out mice? Because, you're constantly clicking, or you're holding down the left mouse button to do whatever. But in truth, like that's part of why it worked. It was basically like click and win, click to get rewards. That's like, I think it was even a design principle that Dave Brevik was talking about, saying like, yeah, basically when we made this game, we just wanted you to, be able to kill something and like hear gold fall down and pick it up. Like that's one of the best moments in the universe, is just like in games anyway, is that like I killed something and then the gold falls out. And Diablo 2 and 1 were just great at that. So yeah, I don't really have that much that I would change about that game. I think it's really it's almost, I don't want to say perfect, but it's definitely up there for me.
On Diablo 3 itself, then, and to an extent as well, Reaper of Souls, like you touched upon like elements of it that you touched upon how Diablo 3 couldn't really, get on Diablo 2, or couldn't really compare to Diablo 2 because of, it felt like it had kind of lost its soul with after playing Diablo 2. But like, other than that, like, how did you find Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls?
I mean, I finished it. I leveled my characters to whatever it was, 70 or 80. I enjoyed it. I appreciated production values. They're still best in class. I think the two biggest issues I had One is that I feel like they lost the thread when it came to the balance of like procedural content, like I was saying before. And the other is I hate scaling damage. Like I hate seeing numbers that are like I just did 300 million damage to a demon. Like and they would never do that in D2. Like the numbers would never get that big. And it started to happen in World of Warcraft too. Like when you started to get these expansions, you'd be like, did I just do 30,000 damage to a whatever? And it just starts to feel like, is this just one big, I'm just pushing numbers up? Like it's just a stupid numbers game? At that point, that's where I start to back away from my enjoyment of the game, because I don't believe it anymore. Like, when the numbers are that big, when I'm doing 300 million damage, that just feels fucking stupid to me. So I think that was a huge disconnect, and one I really don't believe in. I think there are better ways to treat those problems, but there obviously people enjoy it. I just don't.
As well as Diablo 3 itself, like there's obviously been the spiritual successors, like we mentioned earlier, Torchlight and Path of Exile.
Yep.
Go into those a little bit, like how you found those.
I really liked both Torchlight and Torchlight 2. I think that they were probably the best. Torchlight 2 in particular was very close to for me. I really enjoyed that. It wasn't as polished. It wasn't. They still didn't get all the things right that D2 got right, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of the stuff was very good. The sense of world wasn't as strong, anywhere near as strong. Like the layout of place, which Diablo excelled at, and the skill tree definitely not as strong, and the different classes not as strong, but they're still good. I played Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn is very good, but suffers from, in some ways, a lot of the same things that Torchlight suffered from. They have, though, like a crazy skill tree thing where you've got like two overlapping systems, like a meta. One is a meta system, and the other is like your specific one. I don't know. Grim Dawn is good, though. Definitely good. Worth checking out if you like action RPGs. I didn't like Path of Exile as much. I just felt like their skill tree, can't even call it that, map was so enormous. You had too many choices, so they kind of lose value. I'm sure there are people that isn't the case for, but for me, if I'm looking at 500 choices, then I'm just like, fuck this shit. So there's a sweet spot for design for me when it comes to like actual numerical values of like how many things can I keep in my head at one time, and 500 is too many. So those two are good. What else? I was actually going to check out, what's it called? Just came out. Alienation, I think it's called.
Yeah. From
Housemarque. I heard it's really good. And that seems like it's in the vein of this, but it's science fiction, which looks super cool. So I'm going to check that shit out. Looks good.
So yeah, if I had to ask you, like top 3 Diablo games, including the expansions, how would you rank them? Obviously 2 at the top, but like how else would you rank that top 3?
Yeah, it would be 2, then LOD, then Diablo 1. Then Diablo 3 would be at the bottom. And I like Reaper of Souls, actually. But yeah, I mean, they're all good games, so it's not like anybody's losing out. That's just the order I would put them in.
honorable mentions. Go for it.
Planescape Torment. That was also old but great game. Amazing writing. Chris Avallone, guy who did Pillars of Eternity and Fallout 2 and Knights of the Old Republic. All those guys at Black Isle. If you've never played that RPG, take some time and play it. It's really worth it.
Worth noting, by the way, before they push out this episode, Chris Avallone been on a few weeks ago. Check that out.
Oh, was he? Awesome. Yeah. Chris, I have a funny story about Chris. I wrote Chris like 14, 15 years ago after playing Planescape Torment, and he wrote back. This is when I was like not even, I don't know what I was doing. It must have been it's like 18 years ago. He thanked me, like, because I was like, thank you for this game. I love it. It's awesome. You're the greatest. I love you, Chris. And he wrote back, and he was like, thanks, man. You know, things like this keep us going. And I remember being struck by like what a great response it was, and what I didn't expect him to write back at all. And he's just that kind of person. Like we stayed in touch like for 18 years. I'd only met him, I think, in person like 2 years ago. Yeah, Chris is fucking awesome. So everybody love Chris. Chris, great. What was I saying? So yeah, Planescape, big one. Uncharted 2, definitely up there. Tremendous game, really good stuff in every direction. I adore Jesus. What else? Weird baseball game called Out of the Park Baseball. If you like baseball, it's pretty much the greatest simulation of all time. Other things? What other things? I mean, I love Skyrim. I don't know if it's top 10, but it's up there. Dark Souls for me is a huge one. Obviously, everybody with fucking Dark Souls, but it was really special when I played it first time. I felt like a kid again, which is that's my meter for if a game can make me feel like a kid again, that's a big deal. So like if games strip that wire for people, I think they should pay attention because it means something. What the hell else? I don't know. Those are all up in my top list, and I'm sure that there are others. But right now, those are the ones that come to mind.
Like you mentioned Skyrim. Like, what about all the Bethesda RPGs? Like, how do you find those? Like, what about Fallout 4?
Well, I love Bethesda RPGs. So, and I bought a computer when I was in college to play whatever it was, Daggerfall. Like on student loans, which wasn't the best idea. So that's tell you something. But yeah, like I love those games, and I loved Oblivion, and I love Skyrim, and even though I have issues with it, so I don't know. There's just the things with Fallout, and really with Fallout 4 specifically, it felt less like the Bethesda games in some ways than I'm accustomed to, just because they made the combat better than it usually has been. But I still enjoyed it. I think the funny thing about all their games is that like you have the agony of like making a decision about something because there's so many options. It's like being in a grocery store. So, and that's been the way with all their games, like pretty much since forever. That's their thing. They're like, here's a whole world. Good luck. And then you just have to kind of like focus or freak out because there's so many things you could possibly do.
Like you mentioned Uncharted 2, and like that was around the period like Naughty Dog truly started becoming a whole juggernaut of itself. Like it was around that time. So like since Uncharted 2, like how have you found like their games since? Like with Uncharted 3, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4 coming out in a few days' time as of recording this, anyways.
I'm looking forward to 4. I didn't like 3 very much. I feel like they lost the soul of the game. It wasn't as funny. It wasn't as whatever adventurous. I think I fell asleep playing 3. I don't know. It's just whatever the thing was, the magic wasn't there for me in 3. Even though it was technically, superb and as usual. But I mean, to be fair, like I'm really weird with those games. With Naughty Dog games in general, like I feel like I have a very narrow very narrow band that I appreciate because on the one hand, their craftsmanship is unbelievable and they're the best in the industry. And on the other hand, like I don't necessarily want to play that. So, and that's just my preference. So, like, well, for whatever reason, Uncharted 2 didn't bother me that way, and I was just able to have a great time. But like, I tried to play Last of Us, and I just was like, I don't want to play this. It's not interesting to me. I don't like the stories, like a B movie, like all the things that everybody would be like, oh my god, what? But it's the greatest story of all time. Like, I don't feel that way. I feel like that's how people want me to experience it, but that's not how I experience it. So I'm really on the fence about Uncharted 4. I hope to God I like it. I'm just afraid that it's a whole bunch of people getting amped up over shit that I'm not going to be that thrilled with. But I'm hoping for the best. I'm going to buy the game anyway because I really do enjoy adventure, that kind of thing.
One more game that you mentioned I want to touch upon as well, and this is actually honestly the game I thought you would pick as your favourite game because you go on about it so much on Twitter. Dark Souls. Yeah.
I didn't pick Dark Souls as my favorite only because I think I can't pick a game. Yeah, I don't think it is. Not because I don't love it, because I do, but I don't feel like I'm qualified to call it my best game, if that makes my favorite game, if that makes any sense. Like, I would have needed to do much more. Like I know Diablo 2 backwards and forwards. I probably can tell you how the systems, every single system almost works, just because I've been through all their files. When I made the mod, like I made the mod based on my knowledge of what they did. So in some sense, I feel like I did that because I had so much admiration for the game. So for me, I haven't gone to that length with Dark Souls. Yet. I may, but not yet. And I haven't played Souls as much as I played D2, so that's why. Anyway, but Souls is... The reason I love Dark Souls so much is completely different from the reason that I love Diablo 2, although there are things that are similar. Like, I loved hardcore mode, and Dark Souls, you could argue, is just one big hardcore mode. But the thing that I think I liked, there are many things I love about Dark Souls. One of them is that they do storytelling unlike anybody else, and it's great. And it's the total opposite of like the nonsense that's in Skyrim, where you have to wait for Uther to finish his 20-second ramble about how he used to live in the valley of whatever, and you're like, I'm gonna kill myself. And Souls is just like, there's some weird dude laughing at you in the corner, and you're like, what's that? I don't know what that is. But then you find all this stuff in the world that you have interactions with that are like one-offs, or like you would never even know about them, but collectively they form this story that you experience, that not that is told to you, but that you do the story. You pick up the objects, you read the thing, and you're like, oh, that's what that is. And Bloodborne is the same. So I really admire that, and I admire how good it is at making you feel like you occupy like a place that is completely unlike any other place I've ever played in, I think. And that's really hard to achieve, I think, in games. Like, just the idea that you feel like I'm here in this other world is super, super hard to do. And they do it, and then they also have the best combat system, I still think, the best third-person combat system. In terms of precision and everything else, I really think it's super refined. So yeah, I just think they're terrific.
So, top 3 games on your list, like how would you rank them? Obviously Diablo 2 at the top. I would say Planescape in second after that, but how would you rank it third place?
I might put Souls in third. It's probably Souls, yeah. And maybe a tie with Souls and like the baseball game. And I mean, there are other RPGs that I adore, but I would say those are the big ones. Yeah, it's weird because you look back at like what did I spend the most time playing? World of Warcraft was definitely up there for a while. I played a lot of that. Yeah, I usually look at the games that I come back to later, like Civilization and stuff like that. Um, well, I mean, we're making a secret game over at the Outsiders. That's good, and at some point maybe we'll talk about it more. But now's not the time. Um, I don't know what I have to hawk. If anybody ever wants to talk to me, I'm at Locust9 and on Twitter. I'm usually pretty nice, not always though. So be aware. But yeah, that's. I don't have too much to hawk. I'm just happy to talk, and thanks for giving me the opportunity.
You're very much welcome. Thanks for listening to my favourite game. We're taking a 2-week break off now thanks to E3 next week. But when we come back, it'll be with Kelly Santiago on Fahrenheit. Until then, enjoy E3. Bye bye.